Commissioner Kula said, thank you so much for what you do at Parks and Recreation. You know, we are blessed in my region to have so many great parks, you know, Letchworth State Park, Allegheny State Park, and thank you for making them just real gems for New York State. Commissioner Ball, thank you very much for being here. I think we are just so blessed to have a real farmer in charge of ag and markets, and also a small business owner, someone who truly understands the struggle. So I want to lead off with what I think is the biggest struggle for our agriculture industry, and that is the overtime threshold. And I think this is probably a foregone conclusion, even though we really don't, in my opinion, we don't need the taxpayers to subsidize a system that wasn't broken. But with this tax credit, what's this going to look like? Because I think that's the biggest concern. One of my big concerns is how many strings will be attached to being able to access this tax credit, this overtime tax credit.
Well, hopefully we're going to work together with our partners at tax. We have worked very well together thus far. I don't anticipate a lot of strings attached. The reporting should be fairly simple. We were going to handle the validation at the Department of Agriculture, and tax will issue the checks. It'll happen twice a year, one at a midpoint during the year around July, and a second time at the end of the year to reimburse the farmers at 118% of what they have spent on overtime.
You know, it's my conversations, and Senator Hinchey and I also agree on this, that we'd like to see this be quarterly, because obviously cash flow is a huge issue, especially with our small family farms. Is there any discussion on, instead of you know, twice a year, but being actually quarterly?
There is. Hopefully we'll get to that point. I think tax is willing. Yeah, I think that's been in the back of their minds and ours, that it be quarterly, so it's less burdensome on the agricultural community.
Now, when I say strings attached, my concern is, and again, this is going to ramp up over the course of several years. You know, I'm concerned about what strings might be attached from special interests to access that overtime credit. Are you going to have a labor peace agreement, for example, in order to get the tax credit? Are you going to have to meet certain standards for pay, housing, whatever? And you know, let's keep in mind that our farmers already take very good care of their guest workers. They obviously, it's good business, and they're also good human beings and hard workers. So you don't, is there any conversations at all about the type of strings attached that I just mentioned?
No.
Okay.
And we'll pay very close attention to this as we go forward. We have a little time to get into the details on this, obviously, but we'll pay very close attention. I began as a farm worker, so I'm pretty familiar with how it works.
Great. Thank you. Next question is, you know, with the electrification, so to speak, of our state, natural gas is obviously critical for pretty much every farm. Everything from being able to, you know, keep the animals warm to ensuring that your operations are up and running. And the idea that if you want to build a new barn, we'll say in 2 years, you're not going to be able to power it with natural gas. How is that going to be handled? How are we going to help our farmers? There's technology that just doesn't exist in some cases to use anything but natural gas. So how are we going to help our farmers in this, what I think, unnecessary transition plan is?
At this point, you know, I mentioned the work of the Ag and Forestry panel on the scoping plan. And we exhausted that pretty well. We thought about that. And we see farms as an opportunity to be a part of the solution in sequestering carbon, but also in making energy. So the ability to make energy on our farms, actually make the thing, New York State climate better. I will point out that at this point, ag buildings, strictly ag buildings, housing equipment, housing shops, housing livestock are exempted from the energy concerns that you have. So those are considered hard to electrify operations. So we're going to look very closely at that. I think as we've written the scoping plan, I would invite you to take a look at it. I think there's enough room in our rural areas and in our language there to help our farms be solutions, not problems.
Well, eventually we're going to be, you know, forced to electrify, and I think that that's a concern. I don't think there's a real plan. Certainly, I don't think there's an electric tractor that exists. So I'm very concerned about what we're going to do to ensure that we maintain agriculture in New York State. So it's nice to say those things, but we actually have to do it, and that's by not trying to put them out of business. But thank you for all you do.
Thank you.